What's up, everybody? It's Johnny King with another episode of the Becoming Kings podcast. I'm stoked. I'm really excited to have an amazing man, Mark Bentz, in the house, who I've met through the good old Tony Robbins network. Mark, what's going on, man?
Oh, it's all good, Tony. I just sorry, Johnny. It's a lot of Tony in our lives. Everything's great. It's a beautiful day in Vancouver, so just good to be.
Yes, Vancouver, British Columbia, and we've connected recently, like I said, through the Tony Robbins network. But I've just been so impressed the more I've been learning about what you're up to and just your story, which I want to get into. But ultimately, your bio online says that you're, man, so many things. You're a entrepreneur, you're a massage therapist, a practice strategist, a speaker, an educator, a philanthropist, with a passion to help others find growth and fulfillment in what they do. But you also have a huge passion for teaching blind kids and young adults to kind of build resilience through hockey. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah, it's always a dream in my mind. When I was young, I wanted to play hockey, and what I could do was just floor hockey up to grade 6, and then my eyesight was not good enough, so I had to quit. So yeah, it's always been a passion of mine, and so I've been doing it 20 years, and it's an awesome experience for myself. But of course, getting young kids out there and realizing that, hey, at 9, 10, 11, at their age, having everything ahead of them and all the structures in place, and we have everything there now across Canada and across the States, so visually impaired and blind people can play ice hockey.
That's so cool. It's so cool. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about the charities that you're involved with, which are doing some pretty amazing thing for blind people. But why don't we rewind a little bit? Tell us a little bit more about your story, how life was leading up to your degenerative eye disease around age 9. But how I'd like to get into really your mental health too, because I just got to imagine, um, you know, losing your sight rather than being born blind. You're old enough, obviously, to remember seeing. Like, how does that affect your mental state, and where did you go? I know we talked about this offline, but where did your mind go throughout the years until you really were able to kind of turn the corner with your emotional resilience, if you will?
Yeah, it was tough. Let me tell you, it's been many decades now. I'm 54, so I've had this disease for 45 years, and
Mm,
it's slow degenerative disease. And I'm really thankful for that because I have seen everything and I've traveled tremendously. And I still even travel with 1% of my vision to all these places because I need to imprint as much as I can with the vision I have into my memory.
mm,
And it has allowed me over the years to be able to just see beyond what I naturally, what the doctor tells me, because I've had so many experiences. But it all started back when I was 9, and life was pretty amazing. I grew up in Vancouver, playing kick the can, riding my bike everywhere, just having an amazing young boy's life. And I went to a soccer practice one day with my mom. She dropped me off, and I was like, "Oh man, it must be canceled, mom." And my mom goes, "No, no, they're playing just over there." And I'm like, "Where?" And she's like, "Well, that's weird." And what had happened was they had just moved one soccer field over. And so my mom took me to the eye doctor, realizing that something was definitely wrong because they weren't that far away from us. But I guess I had been accommodating and making up for my loss of vision for a few years. And they told me that I was going to go blind by the age of 19.
mm.
I get chills today talking about it because I couldn't believe that my path was so dire. I was just like, oh my God, like, I just want to go home. I want to ride my bike. I just want to be with my friends.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't going to be a path the typical boy grows up in.
Yeah.
And for a long time, denial was my best coping mechanism. And I just denied because as my vision was going down, I could still accommodate and accommodate and accommodate and accommodate
Mm-hmm.
what was happening to me until I couldn't. And then it just, late 20s, I think it was about 27, I just hit this wall. I remember going to a game of Seattle Mariners down down the Kingdom, and I remember being in the car, and suddenly all my vision, what I had, went from black all the way from the periphery into the middle, to boom, to nothing. And I went, my God, this is it. I've gone blind, and I couldn't believe it. At that moment, that's when my anxiety started, and that was actually a panic attack. And then panic attack, in and out of the hospitals, many medications, then depression set in. Throughout my life, when I was young, starting at about 14, I used alcohol to help numb my pain. And it wasn't social, you know, how we all sort of get into it. It's like a social thing we all do. Sure, that's what I was doing. But ultimately, I was just trying to deal with this loss that I could not shake. And every year it's worse. But I'm very appreciative because, hey, if I was totally blind, I wouldn't have this opportunity to have seen what I've seen, even though it's harsh getting it ripped out of your, you know, having your vision ripped out of your body it's harsh.
No, well, I was gonna ask you, yes, like it's almost, isn't it worse to have had it and, like you said, to have it ripped away from you than just, you don't know any better if you were just born blind?
Well, yeah, I got some blind friends, and they know no different. And so their life is their life. But I can say the vision loss has provided me with just cool opportunities that, you know, maybe could have come if I was totally blind. And you don't know, right? Because it's the path you're given, and you walk your path. But I'm pretty amazed at this fun and enjoyable things I have done as my vision has gone downhill. And I was just sitting out on my porch today, and I was feeling the sun on my face, and I was looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, it's unbelievable, the sun and the blue sky, and that I can still differentiate that. And it really gives me opportunity now that I've dealt with, let's say, the demons of it all, to be able to say, Jesus Christ, is this ever beautiful what we have? Like, it is amazing what we all have, right? If we just think about what we all have and not have all these crazy ass expectations that all these things should be happening the way we want. And back and go, man, let's just appreciate what we have, because it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, amen to that. You know, as I'm listening to you talk, and I'm kind of putting myself in the shoes of maybe another guy that's listening, I think something that I'm certainly guilty of, but something I can even hear Tony Robbins talk about is like, it doesn't help. It wouldn't be helpful for someone to listen to this and be like, well, gosh, yeah, this really helps put things in perspective. I'm really grateful I have my sight, so maybe things aren't as bad as I make them out to be. I think it's all relative, because a guy could be listening to this who, you know, has all his faculties, and yet he was sexually abused by his uncle, you know, and has serious trauma that's affecting him and his sense of happiness and fulfillment as an adult. Now, the idea that I wanted to have you on is just how you've worked through your own, curveballs, trauma, whatever you want to call it, and how you've made that turn versus going down to the bottom of the the barrel of a, bottle of something, or drugs, or women, or whatever. There's so many things that you could have done to really ruin your life, and you've turned it around. I don't know if people probably don't even know this, but you've won 2 gold medals at the Winter Paralympics Games right back in Austria in '84.
Yep.
You've done a lot. It's amazing.
And that was extremely helpful, right? I was the youngest kid on the team, and at 16, when all my friends were getting their driver's license, there was no chance I was doing that. And that's pretty important as a young man.
Yeah.
I just remember going, oh, this is one of those serious life moments where I'm not going to be like other people. But I got to say, the Olympics and winning 2 gold medals and achieving and just taking it to the next level really helped me. It just was like, okay, like, you can do shit. And you gotta really love who you are, right? And guys, I think, have it's an interesting relationship with themselves, because they want to be everything. People think you should be everything. You're the
Right.
strong, powerful person. You shouldn't cry. And back then it helped, because I was still burying everything, but it really did help to achieve something amazing like that.
Well, we're gonna jump around your story a little bit, and just in terms of crying, it just makes me think of what you told me offline about Tony Robbins kind of cracking you open a little bit emotionally. Tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit more about how that became maybe a major pivot point in your life.
Yeah. So about 5 years ago, I went to my first Tony Robbins event. And before that, so what would I have been, 49? Before that, I might have cried 2 or 3 times in my life.
Mm.
And they were at funerals, family and friends of the family who had died. And it was never part of what I saw was to express myself emotionally. And so, like we've alluded to, you have a tendency to go internal. So I went internal. I drank. I took drugs. I did all these coping mechanisms. And really, if I'm looking back on it, I just needed to be open with people and be able to say, "Holy shit!" If I met you, Johnny, at 16, be able to say, "Johnny, man, this road I'm on is harsh."
Mhm.
I I just got to let you know it's harsh, and I don't know the future, but I know, hey, we're buddies, and it's going to be okay, and I'm looking forward to it. But I that just wasn't my path, right? And
Mhm.
so I get to Tony Robbins, and he really gets into it, and I just burst open crying, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what is all this stuff? Like,
Mm.
you know, I how it, there were tears, physical tears, but you could just feel the stress and the relief just pouring out of my body. And I got out of that. That was Date with Destiny. And I remember finishing that week, and I'm just like, I can't believe the absolute gift that I've waited for so many decades. It's actually here. And it was simple.
Mm.
it was all within me. And I spent decades bottling it up. And from there on, I have this great relationship with my emotions.
Mhm.
And high, they're low. I know what they mean. I respect them. I like crying. It's a great thing to be more whole, as opposed to just being so guarded. And yeah, it's just amazing. So yeah, phenomenal what's happened in the last 5 years.
Yeah, so cool. Well, how do you? I mean, like you said that, and I'm going through the same process too, because it's just being a guy and growing up and doing all the things that you talked about, like just getting reconditioned to, allowing myself to feel the highs and the lows. The lows, though, of course, are painful, which is initially why I don't want to feel them. Right? They're shitty for sure. Um, but then it's not like I'm not going to be in I'm not in pain either when I repress my emotions and then I get really angry or really lonely or really like numb. That's not like it's any better than actually feeling the pain. But you had what, 40, you said 49 years worth of kind of repressed emotions, and it all just came out that day. Like, was there anything specific that was a aha, that was like, oh my gosh, or was it just literally like that sense of like the lightness that you felt once you just got that raw emotion out of you?
It was the lightness. It
Yeah.
was this like, so I was sitting there, and you're listening to people, and they're talking to Tony about their life, and you realize how like-minded everybody is.
Yeah.
So I sit there and I go, well, I'm blind, and this person over there goes, well, I've been molested, and this person over there goes, I grew up in the poorest country in the world.
Hmm.
and but we've got all the same um, drivers.
Yes.
I just sat there and I was just like, oh my God, I am like everybody. And that's what allowed me to just let it go, because I was like, I no longer have to have this wall around me. Like I am like everybody, and everybody's like me. And it just, boy, took off, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds. It's just like you beam afterwards because you, I think most people, I'll say for myself, you just want to be like other people, right? And you're like, a shared experience is the best experience.
Yeah.
So that was, yeah, it's the ultimate shared experience that released me of these. They're demons, you know. They sit inside you and they swirl around and they grab a hold of you and make you angry and frustrated and depressed and and you just go, oh my God, I don't want to be vulnerable. But now I go, you know what? It's time to talk about them. And so I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I talk to her about it. I say, you know, Daddy has gone blind all his life, and it's an amazing path I'm on. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's crazy, right? Like I don't choose the role, but it's an interesting one, and it has definitely helped with raising a child because you're just more connected with them.
More connected in what way though? And just being
In
open
that,
and honest.
yeah, kids' emotions are open and honest, right? It takes them a while to develop the guard. So when they're young, they're just raw and open, and they learn, and they're trying to figure out how their emotions should be played out. So I'm working with my daughter to just realize that, hey, play your emotions out, you know, like let them be. And yes, people will judge you, there's no doubt, don't worry, people will judge you, people will say shitty things about you. But like I was saying actually just today with her, I was like, you know what, because she doesn't like being in a big crowd and people looking at her. So I was like, you know what, sweetie, when you're in that type of crowd, don't feel that sort of connection because you're nervous about that. I said, just put in your shit eating smile, big shit eating smile, and just go, hey man, it's great to be here, and go like, and it'll help you not internalize this stuff that isn't real. It
Right.
is real what we make up in our heads.
I feel like I think it's fascinating because I know you know, especially with the Tony Robbins background, but for those that are listening that don't realize, I mean, we all have these needs to be significant, to be of value, to be special. And yet I had a very similar experience to you when I went to my first Tony Robbins event and realized how similar we all were. And we're all running these kind of like robotic patterns of life that make us into these victims, that it gave me so much empathy and grace for myself to like, I forgive myself for being so hard on and so judgmental of all the things I've done, because I'm like, oh, we're actually all so much similar than we than we think we are, right? And that for me too allowed me to just let things go. And but it's still been a process, of course, that where I fall into old patterns of repressing my emotions because sometimes I think it gets in the way of getting stuff done, especially as a guy. But I guess I'm kind of fascinated to hear, how did you, I mean, that was only 5 years ago. So the majority of your life you've been dealing with whether it be the panic attacks, the anxiety, the demons kind of swirling inside. How have you still been able to get so much done and add so much value to your life and the lives of others, even when you've been in a kind of a shitty state, if you will?
Yeah, you just ignore it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what I grew up. You just ignore it. You keep going. You ignore it. You accomplish things, and when you accomplish things, um, I was led to believe that that's like the celebration, right? That's your emotional release. Like, whoa, look at this! I've made this money. I built this. Um, but I realized that's how I got actually into Tony Robbins was when I was 48. I built up my company and everything was going well. Um, and there was a moment, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, suddenly, what I was striving for all my life with money, freedom, wasn't what was in my quote unquote presentation of what I thought success would feel like.
Yeah.
And that got into it is I got to Tony Robbins because ultimately I had stopped growing. And that's a very important concept to appreciate. And when he said that, he goes, when you stop growing, you're dying. And I was,
Hmm.
oh my God, that's what's wrong with me. Like, I I'm not actually achieving because I've plateaued. And it wasn't the money, it wasn't the freedom, it wasn't the home, or if you drive a car, it wasn't the beautiful car you have. It
Right.
isn't the fact that you put yourself to a task and you worked yourself through it. And if you're able to do it with other people, it's just that, for me, it's just that much more gratifying.
Hmm.
But actually, the process of growth, which is what we're achieving, that's what the human brain wants to always be achieving. And it was amazing to have that realization, because I would just push through, drink, push through, take my medication, push through, and ignore how I felt. And then again, once I got to this level, I'm like, no, no, I should be feeling much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It
Oh,
should be here, and it wasn't. And that grow dying concept just boom, just knocked me on my feet and made it opened me up. Opened me
yeah.
up.
Right. I guess I'm kind of curious to think, w- what were you saying as what the costs were of living that way, whether it be on yourself, on your relationships, on your business, you know, of just suppressing it, ignoring. Because I feel like a lot of guys that I think would be, resonating with this whole conversation are doing very similar things, and they're just ignoring as well the cost and the repercussions it's having on their lives and on others.
Yeah, well, the cost is many. It's many things. For me, it was decades of frustration,
Mm.
and I still get frustrated. There's no doubt, but I get frustrated, and then I come through it. Where in the past I would stay frustrated. Frustrated would turn to anger. Anger would be like, "Fucking nothing's happening here. This is ridiculous. What's wrong with me?
Hmm.
How can't I figure this out?" And those are very they can be empowering emotions, or they can be very disabling emotions. So
Yeah.
now I use them as empowering emotions, because like we chatted about earlier, you take your emotions down and you get to that state, but now I can realize that that's just part of the emotional up and down.
Right.
And so down, I go, hey, I got it. I'm down here. I know what this is. And really, what the next step is, greatness is coming,
Mm.
because I'm going to work my way through that, and boom, come out on top. And now I do that way quicker. Before, my God, as I say, it was decades. I had no understanding of it. So, I mean, people would say, Mark, why are you this way? And I was always a very friendly person, but there was that low level of frustration. And that's ultimately what the drinking kept going, right? Because I would drink, get wickedly drunk, 2 days hungover, drink again. And that was my way of saying to myself, I'm going to deal with it. And, it's ridiculous. Like, looking back, um, I shortened probably a lot of relationships. Um, I shortened my ability to have a more openness and vulnerability with people in my life.
Right.
And when you get older and look back, it's just like, you know what? Time runs out. Like, you want to have a rich, fulfilling, and I would say now, I mean, it's a bit overused, this term, but you want to have a vulnerable life. Like, your vulnerabilities are what gives you that vitality. And it's not just driving ahead. That's amazing, because, well, guys can do that
Yeah.
very well.
Hmm.
But if you're burying your head at work, and there's another reason you're doing that, that's when you've got to sort of wake up. Because unless you wake up, there are so many costs down the line. Could cost your marriage, could cost you your family, right? Could cost your kids. There's a lot of things that we ignore. And I'm just yeah, I'm happy I got out of ignoring it.
Yeah, I'm grateful too. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But again, I'm thinking about guys that are listening. If they're really like, God, that is so me. I'm so fucking pissed off. I'm so frustrated. I'm numb. I'm always, angry. Okay, I hear you saying like it's got to change. But then what is it for you as Tony Robbins? For a lot of my other buddies, not a lot of my, but other buddies I've heard use like ayahuasca or other type of plant-based, something to crack themselves open where they are no longer in control of keeping it all down, right? What are some other suggestions, or what would you recommend for a guy if you're just having a coffee with a fellow brother on the path who's like, I'm feeling exactly how you said you were feeling and I need help, but I don't know where to go or what to do next?
Well, I would look at what you're doing that you truthfully know are negative behaviors.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say I truthfully knew drinking for decades was a negative behavior. So I would say to the person, I'd say, hey, like Johnny, the best thing you can do right now is don't quit drinking right now, but why don't you just cut it back 50%?
Hmm.
And why don't you, on the 50% of the time you drink, understand why you're doing it? and and don't hide behind, like, drinking is so hidden behind, oh, it's social, it's summer, it's winter, it's, I don't know, the Super Bowl, it's the Olympics. Like,
Yeah.
it's so hidden. And so I really like the saying that I got from Tony Robbins too, is nothing has any meaning except for the meaning you give it. And so think about, when you do your negative behavior, what meaning are you giving this?
Hmm.
Because you can change your path regardless of what's happened in your life. And so many shitty things happen to people in their lives. Like, it's wicked, right? It's wicked when you start to peel back the onion. But here's the thing. There's no meaning. It's only the meaning you attach to it. So really wake yourself up to that idea, because you can carry these anchors forever.
Hmm.
You can be justified in it, regard of whatever circumstances you have found your life to have on they're probably justified. I don't know. But there's another way of looking at it, by saying, you know what? The meaning I attach to what's happened to me in the past, like for what I'll say about my vision, is that it's given me an opportunity to be here today. And hey, it took me up to 49. And it wasn't all bad. Like, I've had a lovely life. I just chose a lot of negative behaviors to connect with. But now at 49, I don't drink at all. It wouldn't even enter my mind to do it. It's just like, if it takes me that long to get here, fantastic. If I only have 5 more years on this earth, at least I'm open, vulnerable, and emotionally, like, free to be who I want to be, not the bullshit that people tell you want to be.
Right.
It's just like, really understand that nothing has any meaning but the meaning you give it, and look at it, because it's everything you do. It's everything.
Hmm. Man, that's so powerful. It's got me thinking in a lot of different directions. When it comes to what you said, like, man, like 5 years ago, you realized you kind of plateaued in your growth, in your personal growth. Um, what are you doing now? What are you consistently doing to kind of practice making sure that you're sharpening your edge, if you will, so that you're not uh, dying, if you will. So you just keep growing, keep working forward.
Yeah. So every day I have, and we've heard of this before, I have rituals.
Yeah.
So every day I wake up, I have a hot shower and an ice cold shower.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter if I feel shitty or I didn't get a good sleep or God knows whatever else I'll say to myself. I get into the shower and I crank it hot, crank it cold, crank it hot, crank it cold, crank it hot, crank it cold. And it and that attaches, and you can appreciate a Tony Robbins event, and
Mhm.
I've been to 45 of them now. Um, it puts me in that place where I can bring all those positive emotions in play right away. So in the morning, boom, I'm in that shower. I don't check my emails. I don't get caught up in work and the roller coaster that can deliver everybody.
Yeah.
So that is a guarantee. Then I get out of the shower, 50 push-ups, and I do them sets of 10. And then in between that, I do sets of 10 squats. In between that, I do sets of biceps, triceps, shoulders.
Yep.
And then on the treadmill or I have a rebounder. And I also have a big trampoline for my daughter. So one of those. But I do that. All that takes me about 15 minutes. I have wickedly loud music, like very loud music. And when I'm done that, I'm bathed in the proper endorphins to start my day. And so, of anything, that's been the number one thing I've consistently done for 5 years now. And it's so powerful because you can have shitty days. You can go to bed with stress, but when you wake up and you go through that, it's a cleansing, absolute cleansing, and you start fresh. And yeah, some days are hard, some days are amazing. Most days are a combination of both.
I love that. And so it's a practice, it sounds like, of, like Tony says, like emotional state management. You're, rather than being a victim to whatever side of the bed you roll out of emotionally, you're choosing to, like you said, get the endorphins going and choosing to be like, you know what, I'm going to fricking take on this day, and it's probably grounds you, right? Well, I think that's pretty powerful. I think it's speaks to again, those of you that are listening to this, if you don't have some type of ritual, it can be 15 minutes, it could be 5 minutes. I tell some of my clients, like, it doesn't have to be anything more than like, turn off your alarm, do not snooze, get up, get a glass of water, and meditate, or do 10 push-ups, or jump in a cold shower. Any of those things will help change your state from being exhausted and that sort of thing to being a lot more, ready to take on the day and give it your all. Which sounds like you're got a good practice of doing, that's for sure.
Yeah, the other thing too, actually, John, is a good thing, and I guess it depends on where you are in your life, but I would say just don't be hard on yourself. Like, really, really sit back and appreciate all the amazing things you have.
Yeah.
Like, we're so bloody hard on ourselves. Like, we should have this, we should make this, this should be what our wife is, and we should have 2 kids, we should go to Maui every fucking year. Well, whatever you want to say in your head. It's amazing the stuff that are these shoulds that make absolutely no sense, because if you were diagnosed with brain cancer today, it's all bullshit. And I really have a healthy understanding, and this vision has really helped me, is that, you know what, all this external stuff, it's interesting and it has its place, but boy, don't lead with external satisfaction. It's a road to endless hardship. It's just never ends too.
Yeah, amen to that. Something you said maybe half an hour ago or so, you mentioned at some point that as you were losing your sight, you were making different, I don't know if you said accommodations, but something along those lines, but that you were able to see beyond what you could maybe physically see. You didn't say that exactly, but that's what I was kind of talk a little bit more about that. How has this process of, your life's journey and losing your sight given way to enhancements of other ways of seeing, if you will?
Yeah, I was saying accommodate. So I'm constantly filtering what my past vision is through my vision today, and yeah, it has allowed me to still see a lot. And it's really cool because when I go somewhere I haven't been, like, let's say where I was just recently somewhere. This hotel up at Whistler. Never been in this one hotel, and so I didn't know the lefts and the rights. and walk right into the wall because I'd been down the the hallway before, like the night before, but I didn't pain or my dog. I got a guide dog, and it was pretty funny because I'm just waltzing with great purpose, and then boom, and it's just like, yeah, that's right. I forgot I can't see. It just, but I have these filters of what everything should be, and so I have a great ability to pattern what everything is. And it's cool. So I have this amazing just visual patterning ability in my head. My touch, of course, is excellent. My hearing is excellent. I don't know about my taste, but I'll say my hearing and touch is pretty cool. But what I'm most sort of proud about is this filter and patterning that I roll. It's like a movie I just roll through my brain. And every so often, like, well, it just happened to me. I walk into a wall and it's kind of funny because it's cool. And then it's like, yeah, you know what? You're still blind. And it humbles me.
I was gonna say it's a good natural way of keeping you humble.
Yeah. It's and it gives you a laugh, right? Like in the past, I would get probably frustrated and angry and go, oh, fuck, I can't believe, the hallway's made this way, or boy, they should have better lighting. But it's because I was in a different place and a lot of things would trigger me. And now I'm not triggered, as you say, humble, appreciative, open to the fact that this is a journey and I got the journey of going blind.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. When I too have been in a place of like total frustration, being pissed off at myself, angry, and I attempt to keep all that down and repressed within me, it leaks out in me getting frustrated or really angry about the dumbest of things.
Yeah.
It just leaks out and spurts out, and I think that's probably, like you said, you had a lot of other things that would trigger you just because you had all that anger that you were keeping down within you, right?
It's a toxin, right? It's like all toxins. At some point, it's your toxicity level. You can no longer deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, ain't that the truth? Well, let's as we're starting to kind of wrap things up, I want to hear, because you clearly been very successful entrepreneurially, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to connect the dots. I gotta imagine that as if I were going through what you were going through, it, you do kind of feel like you're on an island a little bit by yourself as you're going blind and no one else is, and so you just kind of have to make the decision. You know what, you're going to have to be your own boss. You're going to have to like live by the beat of your own drum. Has your blindness impacted your entrepreneurial spirit much, you think?
No, I'd say it's fueled it because of those other opportunities. So
Mhm.
back in the day of university and that, my friends all went to university. I mean, I did too, but I went later on when I was 24, 25, but
Mhm.
they in as 18. And so what had happened is I couldn't get a job. I mean, I remember I was cleaning floors at Bridges Restaurant at 3 a.m. after being at the bar till 2 a.m., showing up just cooked uh, and cleaning. And I just remember going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm 22 and this is what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
all I could figure out, because back in the day, most blind people, and probably now, they go into university and they're overeducated and unfortunately underemployed. So for me, I was underemployed, but I was always honing the skill of figuring out how can I make it work for myself. Because you said that is that going blind, I had to rely on myself and
Right.
wanted to make sure that what I had was bulletproof. Because what is in me, this blindness, isn't. It's going downhill, and where it stops, nobody knows. But
Right.
how can I make it bulletproof? And I was introduced to massage therapy, got into it, never had a massage before, but I realized really quickly that, oh my God, if I go blind, I can always sell being a blind massage therapist.
Yeah.
And that was actually the foundation of what I have today. So now I've had a whole bunch of clinics, but now I have a clinic in downtown Vancouver, one of the largest in Canada, multidisciplinary clinic. And we have 60 people in the company. But it all came from getting into massage therapy because I was like, you know what? No one can take away this from me. And if I say I'm blind and a massage therapist, people are going to think I'm superhuman. So that's where it really helped because I had a foundation to build with, where before I was living in a sighted world.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was, I mean, sighted world in my 20s, boozing and, hanging with chicks and doing all those things. It wasn't a good recipe.
Right.
But once I got that base education, once I got some failures of running clinics under my belt, and then once I got a little bit more maturity and I was like, okay, I get it. Then my latest venture, which is, well, not so late now, it's been about 14 years, has really paid off, way my imaginations. But now that I've here, it's, there's a lot more to go.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking was like, man, you almost you can't rely on anyone as you were getting older to quote unquote save you. You had to just kind of figure it out and adapt, which I imagine is, I mean, like we both know, resourcefulness is probably one of the best, you know, qualities to have as an entrepreneur and as a human being for that matter. And I imagine you've had to be very, very resourceful as your site was going, you know, and maybe you didn't have someone to lead you or just to guide you and not even like from one place to the next, but even as a mentor going through what you're going through, you had to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was always there. My mom's an entrepreneur at heart, so
Mm.
she's been my biggest motivator from back in the very beginning, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
I always had my mom who really just positioned me in the right place,
Mm.
and really early on told me that your dreams are not going to be limited, and yes, you're going to go blind, but your dreams are not going to be limited. And it really helps to have someone like that in your court. Some people don't have that, but um, it, it was. I mean, I can't say enough about my mom. It's just unbelievable what she's done for me. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, it's a solo road, right?
Yes. Yes.
We walk it, and we all figure out, hey, who's going to be part of our team, who's not. And I've just been lucky enough to figure it out and to get to where I am, and ultimately where I am is love, say, from a company or financial or objective sort of viewpoint, but none of it is worth it. All the money in the world is about being open and having that emotional release 5 years ago when I started being able to cry
Mm.
and be just who I needed to be.
Mm.
And ultimately that honesty started to compound and compound and compound. And yeah, life's pretty nice.
That's pretty cool. That's really, really cool. Speaking of your mom, I was very close with mine as well before she passed away. But what if you had to choose one or two qualities that you admire most in your mom that you are grateful that you've inherited, as well that maybe you're seeing that you're passing on to your daughter? What's one or two of those qualities that your mom had in spades that you just absolutely admire and adore?
She never gave up.
Mm.
It didn't matter, like whatever. And she had lots of different businesses and lots of different shitty things happened to her in her life. And I just watched her and I'd be like, whoa, man, like she just kept pivoting and moving forward. And she was very optimistic.
Mm.
So like you combine never giving up with this healthy dose of optimism. And it was awesome to have that brush off on me because I never give up. And I am, same thing. I'm always optimistic. And so it's been such a great foundation. And yeah, she just had it in spades.
That's so
Still
cool.
hasn't. She's 84.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so cool. And again, and that's got to be a tough. It's obviously tough on you, and we talked about like that question of what is it to be blind, but it's also it has an impact obviously on your loved ones, your mom, your spouse, your kids, your friends, and it's like um, I just got to imagine that it could offer doesn't mean it's or it absolutely happens, but it ultimately could bring you closer to your loved ones when you're having to be more honest and vulnerable, especially these past 5 years, and sharing your emotions, communicating a lot more. It's got to be able to bring you a lot closer versus maybe the pissed off, angry, repressed version of you that was going through life, right?
Yeah, it's excellent. My mom actually was diagnosed a couple of years ago with this really rare lung condition,
Mm.
and we thought she was going to die in like weeks to months. And then for whatever reason, it's stabilized, and she still has it. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like all the shit you have and all the shit you carry, it it's meaningless when something in your life that you like your mother, but
Yeah.
it could be anything. When something so serious happens, you realize how all those other meanings, they can fade away. Like, you charge through life thinking all these things are like these heavy duty things, but it's like, wow, when my mom got diagnosed, I was like, whoa, like nothing has any meaning except for spending these last moments with her.
Hmm.
And nothing else mattered. And of course it, we spent weeks with her and we got everything settled for her to pass away. And then she kept living. And it's just like fantastic. But it gave me that cool opportunity to realize all that fucking anger and frustration. It gave me a clarity in my mind to go, whoa, like, yeah, just if I was honest with myself, for a lot of my life, I almost held it like it was a badge.
Mm.
Like, hey, I should feel this way.
Mm.
And that looking at it, that's a terrible way to sort of feel and to think. And so yeah, I've had those opportunities in my life, but most recently, as I say, just recently, where it's just like, boy, appreciate the day, appreciate those you love,
Mm.
and whoever supports you, just yeah, thank them. And then I got a lot of people that support me, and it's just like, thank you, because it's you guys that give me what I have.
Mm.
You know, so
Yeah.
the dose of that is essential.
Yeah. Gosh, well, and I see that. I think I've lived that at times too, but I can see that in other men that I cross paths with, where there's a sense of pride about their badge of pain, or the shit that they've been through, right? And they wear it with pride, even though it's ruining their lives,
Yeah.
um, versus actually working through it like you have, which is why I think this is such an inspiring conversation because it shows other men what's on the other side of this anger and repressed, hurt and disappointment and shame and everything else that they might be feeling if they just are willing to do the scary work of opening up and communicating and working through and letting all that shit out. It's scary, but it's so worth it.
Oh, so worth it. Because you got to just say, hey, the path you're on, not so good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
If people see greatness in you, go for the greatness.
Amen. Yeah, amen. Well, and talking about just we talked a lot about your growth, but the way that you're contributing in allowing you to feel fulfilled in your life. Let's talk a little bit more about the charities that you're involved in, the Canadian Blind Ice Hockey and the Braille Mountain Initiative. Let's tell those that are listening a little bit more about those, what you're up to.
Sure. Yeah. So 20 years ago, I got into blind ice hockey. Someone introduced it to me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Is that going to be some sort of lame, sort of government run organization where you pity everybody and nothing really happens? And I was very skeptical because there's a lot of organizations out there that are they mean well, but they're really just pity fests for whatever. I mean, I'm blind, so I'll just say for the blind. But no, I went out there and I couldn't believe these guys. I mean, they were just kicking ass. And, whoa, this is fun. So been doing that 20 years. 10 years ago, we started Canadian Blind Ice Hockey, and that was to bring teams across Canada. So there's 3 teams that actually have been playing blind ice hockey for about 40 or 50 years, which is amazing. Together, now we have about 10 teams across Canada, about 15 teams in the States. So it's a pretty good, decent organization now. And what's amazing is all the young kids, like we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids out on the ice with their parents, with their moms, with their dads. Like, it is phenomenal.
That's cool.
Their future, if they want to continue playing, hockey, is absolutely there for them. And it's a fun game. And from a practical perspective, because it's white ice with a black puck, it's very easy from a contrast level for a lot of different visual impairments to play. Although people go, my God, it must be fast and you must hit get hit and all that. And yeah, you do. That's what hockey is.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. So I support that. I was the president of that organization for a while, and I love it. It's a joy. I mean, COVID slowed it down, but we look like we're going to get our first event up in November in Calgary. So
cool.
Want to get involved, reach out to me. Depending on what city you're in, you can come out and volunteer. I can put you together with those representatives. And then also it's called the Braille Mountain Initiative. And so this is an organization started by a guy who was a backcountry avalanche, big powder skier. And that was his life. He's been doing it for like 14 years. And then he got this eye disease. And boom, it just suddenly took it away, one of his eyes. And long story short, he's going blind. So he thought, you know what? I want to open up this opportunity, because he couldn't believe that all you could do was go to your local ski resort and go skiing. He was like, no, man, get in the backcountry. Yeah. It's even better because no one's around. It's totally quiet and it's self-propelled, like you go up on skins. So yeah, I've been involved in that this year. And I'll be involved in that forever. And it's amazing. We go up, we do big powder skiing, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And
That's
also
awesome.
Mountain climbing and all activities in the mountains that are extreme. That's what that's about.
Extreme mountain activities. Yeah. That's so cool. Mountain climbing, powder skiing, everything along those lines.
And yeah, you can think it, we'll do it.
That's awesome. One question, just because I'm curious, what is hockey? Are the rules? Is the game different at all for blind players in the league, or is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, slightly different. So it looks the same, but our puck is a little bit bigger. So it's about 3 inches wide, about 1.5 inches tall. It's metal full of ball bearings, so you can hear it. It clangs, right? So you hit it off the boards, it clangs. So that would be sort of the most obvious equipment difference. The other difference we have in the game is that when you go past, so when the offense goes past the defense's blue line, they have to make a pass. And so what that does is, if you're blind or visually impaired, you'll have a tendency to go end to end and shoot. And that's big for an exciting game.
Right.
We force players to make a pass at the blue line, which then, of course, stimulates the play and makes it an amazing game. Also, people that play offense typically have, to be legally blind, it's less than 10% of vision. So people who play offense typically have 5 to 10% of their vision. People who play defense have typically 0 to 5% of vision. So that's what I play. And then our goalies are blind, and we make sure they're blind by blindfolding them. So that would be the other sort of, I mean, you wouldn't notice it, but that's how we do it, because that also creates a lot of movement. And then the net, depending on where you are, we've made our own nets and we ship them around the world now. They're 3 feet high because we don't want the puck raised so high because it really hurts. Like you can rip that puck.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, that's it. The rest play
Oh,
exactly the same.
that's cool. So requiring the extra pass then also requires a lot of communication. I mean, ultimately, you have to know your your teammates' voices, right? To be able to hear where they're at and then have a sense as to where you're passing it to them through. Correct?
Yeah, and then also like depending on your visual impairment, it's a lot of vision in the visually impaired world. So when I had of my vision, I could still ride my bike
Hmm.
because in my eye condition, I started with no central vision, but very good peripheral vision. Peripheral vision allows you to see everything around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me to ride a bike, I would just look down and I could see perfectly all around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, if something immediately came within 3 feet of my bike, I would slam into it, but I would see it in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So, depending on your visual impairment, um, you'd be amazed. You walk around visually impaired people today that you would, they don't have canes, they don't have guide dogs. They're blind, they're legally blind. You just don't recognize it because they have a level of vision and a coping mechanism, because that's what you like to say, accommodating. You're
Yep.
always accommodating. So people who are losing their vision will always take the same routes because they've memorized the route.
Yep.
So you might go, Mark, how did you get down that hall? And, in the hotel, and I'll go, it's no problem till I walk into the wall.
Right.
But if I didn't walk the wall and you were looking at me from the side, you'd go, holy shit, look at that guy go.
Yeah.
But because I'm patterning everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I love it. Well, I could keep chatting and keep chatting because I'm just loving the conversation. But just for the sake of time, I'll cut things off here. But I want to thank you again so much for just sharing your again talk about vulnerability, sharing your story, sharing your just your love and your sincerity of like giving back to people, express or just showing a great example of a man who, man, for 40 some odd years of your life, you were in the thick of it, but you never gave up, just like your mom, and you've battled through. And I just imagine it's made you such a more enjoyable person to be around, a great husband, a great father, a great boss, and just a great human being. I can attest just from the little bit that we've chatted. So thank you for sharing all that with us.
You're most welcome. Appreciate being on the show, and I'm glad I could help some people out.
Yeah, 100%. And if you guys want to get involved at all with, like he said, the Canadian Blind Ice Hockey Leagues and the Braille Mountain Initiative, where you're doing extreme, especially here in Colorado, I think there's probably a lot of guys. I actually have a buddy here in town that's legally blind that, he'd probably want to hear about these things too. I'm going to pass this conversation along to him. If they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best is mark@markbentz.com. So
Okay.
MARK@MARKBENTZ.com.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, thank you again, Mark. Just a pleasure. Looking forward to doing this again. And you guys, thanks for listening as always. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to contact me or reach out to Mark directly. And until we catch up with you on another episode, thanks for tuning into the Becoming Kings podcast. Thanks, Mark.
You bet.